You know, there are defining moments in galactic history when you can pinpoint exactly where everything went sideways. The moment when the Zephyrian Empire decided to invade a black hole, for instance. Or when the crystalline hive mind tried to negotiate peace through interpretive dance. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, compared to the day the Galactic Council looked at humanity's membership application and decided the best course of action was to laugh. Picture this, the grandest amphitheater in the known universe, carved from a single asteroid and suspended in the void between 12 star systems. Representatives from 3,000 species gathered in their finest ceremonial garb, which ranged from elegant bioluminescent robes to what appeared to be very expensive garbage bags. And there, at the center of it all, stood Beast Lord Thraxon. Now Thraxon was everything you'd expect from a species that called themselves Beast Lords. 8 feet of scales, muscles, and barely contained rage, with teeth that could probably bite through a starship hull and an ego that definitely could. He'd conquered 47 star systems before lunch on most Tuesdays, and his collection of defeated enemies' weapons decorated his personal dreadnought like the world's most intimidating trophy room. "So," Thraxon rumbled, his voice carrying the kind of authority that made lesser beings check their life insurance policies, "the humans of Earth request membership in our illustrious council." The assembled representatives rustled with what might charitably be called amusement. The Gelantian blob creatures jiggled with mirth. The crystalline Vexi chimed like wind chimes in a hurricane. Even the usually stoic stone speakers of Granite Prime cracked what passed for smiles on their rocky faces. "Tell me, Ambassador Cleet," Thraxon continued, addressing a nervous-looking insectoid diplomat whose antennae twitched with barely contained anxiety, "what exactly makes these humans think they deserve a seat at this table?" Ambassador Clate's compound eyes darted around the amphitheater like he was calculating escape routes, which, knowing Clate, he probably was. "Well, your lordship, they've achieved faster-than-light travel, established peaceful first-contact protocols, and demonstrated remarkable adaptability across multiple environments." Thraxon's laugh could have powered a small moon. "Adaptability, how precious. They're a species so pathetically weak they need artificial coverings to survive their own planet's weather patterns. They have no natural weapons, no armor, no telepathic abilities. They can't even see properly in the dark." The crowd's amusement grew louder. Someone in the back row actually started applauding. "However," Cleet pressed on, his voice climbing an octave, "according to the sacred bylaws of galactic membership, established after the unfortunate incident with the Tauri Collective, any species may claim the right of trial by combat to prove their worth." The laughter died instantly. Thraxon's massive head tilted with the kind of predatory interest that made smart beings start updating their wills. "Trial by combat, you say?" His grin revealed teeth that belonged in a museum of natural disasters. "How delightfully traditional. Very well. Let Earth send forth their greatest warrior, their most fearsome champion, their apex predator." He spread his arms wide, muscles rippling beneath scales that had deflected plasma cannons. "I, Beast Lord Thraxon, conqueror of worlds, destroyer of fleets, he who makes stars weep. Accept this challenge." The amphitheater fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems and the distant sound of someone frantically updating galactic insurance records. That's when the transport pad activated. The shimmering energy field dissipated to reveal Earth's champion, an 8-year-old girl in a bright yellow sundress holding a pet carrier. She had pigtails, she had gap teeth, and she had absolutely zero understanding of why several thousand alien beings were staring at her like she'd just declared war on physics itself. "Hi everyone," Emma Rodriguez said with the kind of cheerful wave that could power a small city through pure enthusiasm. "I'm Emma, and this is Mr. Whiskers." She opened the carrier and lifted out what appeared to be a completely ordinary orange tabby cat, who surveyed the assembled galactic powers with the kind of bored disdain that only cats could truly master. The silence stretched on for approximately 17 seconds, which in galactic diplomatic terms was roughly equivalent to a geological epoch. Then Thraxon began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, built to a roar, and eventually became the kind of cosmic belly laugh that probably registered on seismic equipment 3 star systems away. Other species joined in until the amphitheater rang with the sound of 3,000 civilizations collectively losing their minds. "This," Thraxon gasped between fits of laughter, "this is Earth's champion? A human larvae, and it's... He squinted at Mr. Whiskers, who had begun grooming his paw with the dedication of someone who took personal hygiene very seriously. "What is that thing?" He's a cat, Emma explained helpfully, settling cross-legged on the arena floor, with Mr. Whiskers purring contentedly in her lap. Mom says he's the best kitty in the whole world, but I think that's just because she hasn't met all the other kitties yet. Thraxon wiped tears from his reptilian eyes. Oh, this is perfect. Absolutely perfect. The humans send us a child and her pet as their representative. I haven't been this entertained since I glassed the Mordak homeworld. What Thraxon didn't notice, because he was too busy savoring what he assumed would be the easiest victory of his considerable career, was that Mr. Whiskers had stopped purring. What none of them noticed was that the cat's eyes were still closed. But they were about to open. Now, if you've never seen 3,000 alien species simultaneously place bets against a single opponent, let me tell you, it's quite the spectacle. The amphitheater buzzed with activity, as holographic displays materialized above each seating section, showing odds that would have made a Las Vegas bookie weep with envy. The crystalline Vexi were offering 10,000 to 1 against the humans. The Gelantine Commerce Guild had already started calculating the entertainment value of what they were calling the most anticlimactic battle in galactic history. Even the normally pacifist Harmony speakers of New Eden were taking action on how long Emma would last before crying for her parents. Current betting pool stands at 47 billion galactic credits, announced the arena's AI with the kind of cheerful efficiency that only artificial intelligences could manage when discussing potential child endangerment. All bets heavily favored toward Beast Lord Thraxon achieving victory within the first 30 seconds. Ambassador Kleet's antennae had gone completely flat against his head, a sure sign of impending nervous breakdown in his species. He'd been trying to salvage this diplomatic disaster ever since Emma had skipped down the transport ramp like she was heading to a playground, instead of potentially the last day of human civilization. Perhaps, Kleet ventured, his voice climbing toward frequencies that only dogs could hear, we could consider this a cultural exchange instead? A friendly demonstration of human, pet ownership techniques? Thraxon's personal collection glittered behind his throne like a museum of conquest. Weapons from the sword masters of Kethvar, crystallized essence from the dream weavers of Morpheus Prime, even a perfectly preserved battle standard from the legendary war poets of Sigma Draconis. Each trophy represented a species that had once believed themselves superior, right up until they'd met Thraxon's particular brand of aggressive negotiation. The Beast Lord was already mentally selecting where he'd display humanity's contribution to his collection. Maybe that adorable little yellow dress? It would look charming next to the ceremonial armor of the Titan guards he defeated last month. You know, Emma said conversationally to Mr. Whiskers, apparently unaware that her voice was being amplified throughout the amphitheater. This place is really big. Do you think they have snacks? I'm getting kind of hungry, and Mom packed those crackers you like. She reached into a small backpack covered in cartoon unicorns, and produced a package of what appeared to be standard Earth animal treats. The sight of a human child offering snacks to her pet while 3,000 civilizations watched in fascination was probably going to end up in several doctoral dissertations about primitive species behavior. Mr. Whiskers accepted the treat with the dignity of someone receiving tribute from conquered territories, which, if you knew cats, was pretty much his default setting anyway. Magnificent, rumbled Gortz the Destroyer, a 12-foot-tall behemoth whose species had conquered half the Andromeda Galaxy before joining the Council. I haven't seen this level of delusion since the micro-beings of Quantum 7 declared war on reality itself. The crowd's amusement reached new heights when Emma stood up, brushed crumbs off her dress, and looked directly at Thraxon with the kind of polite attention usually reserved for school teachers about to explain long division. So, Mr. Scary Dragon Person, she said, tilting her head with genuine curiosity. Are we going to fight now? Because Mr. Whiskers usually takes his afternoon nap pretty soon, and he gets cranky if his schedule gets messed up. Thraxon's roar of laughter probably registered on instruments designed to detect supernovas. Oh, child, you have no idea what you've walked into. I am Beast Lord Thraxon, the living embodiment of conquest itself. My roar has shattered moons. My claws have torn through dimensional barriers. My very presence has caused entire star systems to surrender rather than face my wrath. Emma nodded seriously. That's nice. Are you bigger than Mr. Peterson's dog? Because Rex is really big and he knocked me over once, but he was just trying to lick my face. The silence that followed could have been bottled and sold as a cosmic phenomenon. You know what's funny about apex predators? They don't usually need to announce it. A great white shark doesn't swim around wearing a name tag that says, "Hello, I'm terrifying." A grizzly bear doesn't hand out business cards explaining its credentials. And Mr. Whiskers, well, Mr. Whiskers was still sitting in Emma's lap with his eyes closed, looking about as threatening as a particularly fluffy throw pillow. Thraxon decided it was time to end this cosmic comedy show. "Enough," he declared, rising from his throne with the kind of dramatic flair that had intimidated civilizations across 7 galaxies. His scales caught the arena lights, creating patterns that had once hypnotized enemy fleets into surrender. "I grow weary of this farce." The Beast Lord's transformation was something to behold. His already impressive 8-foot frame expanded as battle-stimulated hormones flooded his system. Bone spikes erupted from his shoulders and forearms. His claws extended into weapons that could carve through starship hulls. Energy crackled between his teeth as his species' bioelectric capabilities reached full combat readiness. The crowd leaned forward in anticipation. This was more like it. This was the Beast Lord Thraxon they'd come to see, the living weapon who'd turned military conquest into an art form. Emma, meanwhile, was gently scratching behind Mr. Whiskers' ears. "You see, little human," Thraxon rumbled, his voice now carrying harmonics that could shatter glass. "I am going to make this educational. I will demonstrate why your species is unfit for the Council, why you are nothing more than clever primates who stumbled into the stars by accident." He began circling Emma and Mr. Whiskers, each step causing the arena floor to crack under his weight. "I will show the galaxy that humans are soft, weak, helpless creatures who depend on crude technology to survive in a universe designed to kill them." Emma looked up from petting her cat. "Oh, we're not that helpless," she said cheerfully. "Mom says humans are really good at adapting. Like we can live pretty much anywhere if we try hard enough, and we're super good at making friends with animals." Thraxon's laugh was like an avalanche having an argument with a thunderstorm. "Friends with animals? Child, I am an animal. I am the apex predator of my homeworld. I have hunted creatures that would give your species nightmares for generations." "That's cool," Emma said, still scratching Mr. Whiskers' ears. "Mr. Whiskers is a really good hunter, too. He caught 3 mice last week. Well, technically he caught 1 mouse 3 times because he kept letting it go, but Mom says that's just because he was playing with it." The crowd was eating this up. Several species were already composing what would undoubtedly become legendary ballads about the day the humans sent a child to face a beast lord. The singing crystals of Harmonia had started a betting pool on whether Emma would cry before or after Thraxon's first demonstration of power. That's when Thraxon made his move. He reared up to his full height, energy crackling between his claws, and let loose a roar that had once caused an entire moon to surrender its allegiance to a neighboring planet. It was a sound designed by evolution to trigger every flight response in the galaxy. A primal scream that said, "I am death incarnate, and you are lunch." The arena's protective barriers flared to life as the shockwave hit them. Several species in the upper tiers covered their auditory organs. Ambassador Cleet actually fainted, which was probably the most sensible thing anyone had done all day. Emma blinked once and tilted her head. "Wow, you're really loud. Are you okay? You sound like you might have something stuck in your throat." But something else had happened during Thraxon's impressive display. Mr. Whiskers had opened one eye. Just one. A single amber orb that regarded the Beast Lord with the kind of casual interest usually reserved for watching paint dry or grass grow. But something about that lazy, half-lidded gaze made the nearby spectators shift uncomfortably in their seats. The veteran warriors of Proxima, hardened soldiers who'd seen combat across 3 galactic wars, suddenly found themselves checking exit routes. The Hive Mind Collective, beings who shared courage across billions of individuals, experienced their first collective shiver in recorded history. Even the arena's AI paused its commentary for 3.73 seconds, which in computer terms was equivalent to a moment of stunned silence. Huh, Emma said, glancing down at her pet. "Mr. Whiskers is waking up. He must be getting interested in all the noise." Thraxon, who had been expecting terror, submission, or at least a reasonable amount of cowering, found himself staring at a small orange cat who seemed to be evaluating him with the same interest one might show a particularly boring television commercial. "What?" the Beast Lord said slowly. "Is that creature looking at?" Emma followed his gaze down to Mr. Whiskers, who had now opened his second eye and was regarding Thraxon with what could only be described as mild professional curiosity. "Oh, he's just checking you out," Emma explained helpfully. "He does that with new people. Mom says cats are really good judges of character. Mr. Whiskers can always tell when someone's trying too hard to be scary." The arena fell dead silent. Somewhere in the upper tiers, a quantum mathematician began rapidly recalculating the odds. What happened next would later be described by xenobiologists as the moment the galaxy learned to fear Earth's true dominant species. But in real time, it started with something so mundane that half the audience almost missed it. Mr. Whiskers stretched. Now, if you've never seen a cat stretch, you might think this is no big deal. Cats stretch all the time. It's what they do between napping, eating, and judging everything around them with the kind of disdain usually reserved for art critics. But this wasn't just any stretch. This was the stretch of a creature that had just decided to pay attention. The reaction from the crowd was immediate and visceral. The battle-scarred veterans of Proxima, beings who'd faced down cosmic horrors with names that couldn't be pronounced without causing minor dimensional rifts, collectively took a step backward. The hive mind of Kepler, a species that shared fear across billions of individuals, experienced what their historical records would later describe as the Great Unified Nope. Even the arena's artificial gravity seemed to fluctuate slightly, as if the universe itself was having second thoughts. "By the 7 burning moons," whispered Commander Vexai, a crystalline warrior whose species had conquered star systems through pure mathematical precision. "What is that thing?" Ambassador Cleet, who had just regained consciousness, took one look at Mr. Whiskers mid-stretch and promptly fainted again, which, considering what happened next, was probably the smart move. "Oh no!" came a voice from the Tauri section, barely audible over the crowd's growing unease. It was Dr. Morpheus Kane, the galaxy's leading expert on evolutionary biology, and the being who'd originally classified Earth's ecosystem for the Council database. "Oh no, oh no." Fraxon, still caught up in his own dramatic presentation, hadn't noticed the crowd's reaction. "You see?" he bellowed, gesturing at the seemingly harmless house cat. "This is what passes for a predator on the human homeworld. A creature so pathetic it requires another species to provide its food, shelter, and protection." Mr. Whiskers finished his stretch, sat back on his haunches, and yawned. The yawn was barely audible, just a tiny pink mouth opening for perhaps 2 seconds. But the effect on the assembled galactic powers was like watching a black hole sneeze. "Dear gods of the eternal void," Dr. Kane's voice carried across the arena's communication system, tinged with the kind of scientific horror usually reserved for discovering that your calculations were off by several zeros. "Do none of you understand what you're looking at?" Fraxon paused mid-gesture. "What are you babbling about, academic?" Dr. Kane's crystalline form was practically vibrating with panic. "That's not a pet, you idiots. That's Felis catus, one of Earth's apex predator species. They didn't domesticate humans. Humans domesticated them. Do you have any idea what that means?" The silence that followed was the kind usually associated with civilizations realizing they'd just declared war on entropy itself. "It means," Dr. Kane continued, his voice climbing toward frequencies that made several species cover their auditory organs, "that humans took a perfect killing machine. A creature so evolutionarily successful that it conquered an entire planet through sheer predatory excellence, and convinced it that living with them was a good idea." Emma looked up from where she was, now gently stroking Mr. Whiskers' fur. "Oh, we didn't convince him of anything. Mr. Whiskers just decided he liked us. Mom says cats choose their humans, not the other way around." "Exactly!" Dr. Kane shrieked, causing several nearby spectators to check their life insurance policies. "Don't you see? This creature, this perfect predator, evaluated an entire species and decided they were worthy of its protection. What does that tell you about humans?" Fraxon's confidence was beginning to show its first cracks. "It tells me they're useful servants to their betters." Mr. Whiskers turned his head to look directly at the Beast Lord. "Have you ever been evaluated by a cat? Really evaluated? There's something uniquely unnerving about being measured by a creature that has spent millions of years perfecting the art of killing things efficiently. It's not malicious, it's not angry, it's just calculating, like a computer running probability algorithms on your continued existence." Fraxon found himself being subjected to that gaze, and for the first time in his considerable career of cosmic intimidation, he felt something he'd almost forgotten existed. "The average house cat," Dr. Kane's voice continued with the relentless precision of someone delivering a lecture on cosmic horror, "has reflexes faster than most military-grade AI systems. Their hunting instincts are so refined that they can detect prey movement invisible to most scanning equipment. They can navigate in complete darkness, survive falls that would kill most species, and their bite force per square inch exceeds that of creatures 10 times their size." Mr. Whiskers began grooming his paw with the casual efficiency of someone cleaning a precision weapon. And here's the really terrifying part. Dr. Kane's voice had dropped to a whisper that somehow carried throughout the entire amphitheater. They hunt for sport, not for food, not for territory, not for reproduction. For fun. The humans feed them, shelter them, provide medical care, and in return, cats occasionally bring them dead things as presents. Do you understand what that dynamic represents? Thraxon's throat had gone very dry. What? It means humans have formed a symbiotic relationship with a species that kills for entertainment. They've allied themselves with creatures that treat hunting the way other species treat recreational activities. And somehow, they've convinced these perfect killing machines that humans are worth protecting. Emma giggled as Mr. Whiskers finished grooming and settled back into her lap, purring like a small, furry engine of contentment. He's not scary, he's just a good kitty who likes belly rubs and chasing laser pointers. The fact that this statement was delivered while the galaxy's most feared warriors were backing toward the exits only made it more terrifying. Thraxon looked at Emma, then at Mr. Whiskers, then back at Emma. For the first time in his life, he was beginning to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he'd made a very serious miscalculation. Now, there's something you need to understand about beings who've spent their entire lives being the most dangerous thing in any room. When they suddenly realize they might not be, the psychological adjustment period can be, well, messy. Thraxon decided to double down. "Enough of this nonsense," he roared, though his voice carried just a hint of the desperation that comes from having your entire worldview challenged by a house cat. "I am Beast Lord Thraxon. I have conquered worlds. I have made stars tremble." He began what could only be described as the most elaborate threat display in galactic history. Energy coursed through his scales like liquid lightning. His bone spikes extended to their maximum length. He activated his species' intimidation pheromones, filling the arena with chemical signals designed to trigger primal terror in any creature with a functioning nervous system. Mr. Whiskers blinked slowly. Once. For those unfamiliar with cat behavior, this is roughly equivalent to a polite yawn during someone's PowerPoint presentation about quarterly earnings. "You see this display of power?" Thraxon bellowed, causing several nearby force fields to flicker under the strain. "This is what true predatory dominance looks like." Emma raised her hand like she was in school. Excuse me, Mr. Scary Dragon Person? Mr. Whiskers does that too, but usually he's just asking for treats." Silence. Thraxon's roar shattered 3 recording devices and caused the arena's AI to file an insurance claim. "I am demonstrating why your pathetic species—" He trailed off because Mr. Whiskers had started doing something that made every predatory instinct Thraxon possessed suddenly scream warnings at maximum volume. The cat was purring. Not the gentle, contented purr from earlier. This was different. This was the deep, rumbling purr that every cat owner recognizes, but never really thinks about. The purr that sounds suspiciously like idling heavy machinery. The purr that makes you wonder exactly what your adorable pet is thinking about when they're sitting in your lap at 3 in the morning, staring at nothing. "Oh." Dr. Kane's voice whispered across the arena's communication system. "Oh dear, he's happy." The crowd had gone silent again, but this time it was the silence of several thousand beings collectively holding their breath. "Why?" Thraxon asked slowly. "Is that a bad thing?" "Because," Dr. Kane replied with the careful precision of someone explaining why touching the pretty red button was a bad idea, "predators are most dangerous when they're content, when they're relaxed, when they're not stressed or afraid or angry, but just satisfied with their current situation." Mr. Whiskers stretched one paw, extended his claws for exactly 2 seconds, then retracted them and settled back into Emma's lap. The gesture was so casual, so effortless, that it took the crowd a moment to realize what they'd just witnessed. Those claws had moved faster than most beings could track. They'd extended and retracted with the precision of engineered weapons. And Mr. Whiskers had done it the way most creatures blinked. "The thing about Earth's apex predators," Dr. Kane continued, his voice now carrying the tone of someone delivering a eulogy for galactic arrogance, "is that they don't need to prove anything. They don't need to roar or display or threaten. They just are." Thraxon was staring at Mr. Whiskers with the dawning horror of someone who'd just realized they'd been flexing in front of a nuclear weapon. "But it's just sitting there," he said weakly. "Yes," Emma said brightly, scratching behind Mr. Whiskers' ears. "He likes to sit. Mom says cats spend most of their time conserving energy for when they really need it, like when there's a bird outside the window or when the vacuum cleaner comes out, or when someone's being mean to their human. The last part was delivered with the same cheerful innocence as the rest, but somehow it hit the arena like a physical blow. Thraxon's impressive threat display began to flicker and fade. His energy output dropped, his bone spikes retracted slightly. For the first time in recorded history, the Beast Lord was experiencing what could only be described as performance anxiety. I am the destroyer of worlds, he said, but his voice had lost its cosmic authority and now sounded more like someone trying to convince themselves of something they were no longer sure about. Mr. Whiskers looked up at him with those amber eyes, and Thraxon had the uncomfortable realization that he was being evaluated by a creature that had decided Emma was worth protecting. And if cats were really as good at judging threats as Dr. Kane suggested— "You know what?" Thraxon said, his voice climbing toward panic. "Maybe we should call this a draw. Mutual respect between apex species. No need for anyone to get hurt." Emma tilted her head. "But we haven't fought yet. Don't you want to see what Mr. Whiskers can do?" The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of several thousand beings simultaneously deciding that they had urgent business elsewhere in the galaxy. Thraxon looked at the small orange cat in the little girl's lap. The cat looked back with the patient expression of someone waiting for a bus. The Beast Lord began. "I surrender," he finished in a very small voice. The arena's AI, after a pause that would later be described as stunned processing delay, announced, "Winner by forfeit, Earth's representative and, companion animal." Mr. Whiskers yawned again and closed his eyes. Just another Tuesday. You know what's funny about paradigm shifts? They happen so fast that most beings don't realize their entire understanding of reality has just been rewritten until they're already living in the new one. The Galactic Council's unanimous vote to grant humanity immediate membership took exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. This was, according to parliamentary historians, the fastest unanimous decision in Council history, beating the previous record of 6 minutes and 12 seconds when they'd voted to classify black holes as probably not good vacation destinations. But the real changes started happening in the hours after Emma and Mr. Whiskers had been transported back to Earth, completely oblivious to the fact that they'd just altered the political landscape of 3 galaxies. The first thing to change was the betting pools. Within an hour of Thraxon's surrender, gambling establishments across the known universe had begun offering odds on humanity's military capabilities. The early favorite was that humans had somehow weaponized their symbiotic relationship with apex predators. The more paranoid species were already speculating about Earth's domestication program, and whether other seemingly harmless creatures might actually be strategic assets. The second thing to change was the intelligence reports. According to our xenobiological survey, reported Commander Zethic to the Proxima Military Council, his voice carrying the careful tone of someone delivering news about an incoming asteroid, Earth's ecosystem appears to be specifically designed to produce the galaxy's most efficient killers. The holographic display behind him showed what looked like a nature documentary, but the statistics floating alongside each creature told a different story. Polar bears that could survive in environments that would kill most spacefaring species, birds of prey with visual acuity that exceeded military-grade targeting systems, sharks that had remained evolutionarily unchanged for millions of years because they'd achieved perfection early. "And the humans live alongside all of these?" asked General Korath, her crystalline form flickering with what might have been nervous energy. "Not alongside," Zethic corrected grimly. "They live on top of the food chain. They've made companions of creatures that hunt for sport, working partners of beasts that can track prey across continents, and beloved family members of animals that could kill them without effort but choose not to." The silence in the council chamber was punctuated only by the gentle hum of life support systems and the distant sound of several military strategists updating their threat assessment protocols. "Sir," came a voice from the intelligence section. "We're also receiving reports that humans engage in something called extreme sports during their leisure time. Activities that appear to involve deliberately putting themselves in mortal danger for entertainment purposes." The general's form stopped flickering entirely. "They do what?" "They throw themselves out of aircraft without propulsion systems, navigate down mountainsides at lethal velocities, and engage in combat sports where the objective appears to be rendering their opponent unconscious. For fun, sir." Meanwhile, in the diplomatic quarters, Ambassador Cleet was having what could charitably be described as an existential crisis. His report to the Insectoid Collective had been rejected 3 times by their central processing unit, which had concluded that the data was either corrupted or the result of a complete psychological breakdown. No, you don't understand," Cleet chittered into his communication device, his antennae twitching with frustration. The human child wasn't accompanied by a pet. She was accompanied by a tactical advisor, a consultant in applied predatory behavior. The humans have formed a symbiotic relationship with creatures that evaluate threats professionally. The response from the collective was the electronic equivalent of patting someone on the head and suggesting they take a nice long vacation. But perhaps the most significant change was happening in the Beast Lord's personal quarters. Thraxon sat in his trophy room, surrounded by the weapons and artifacts of 47 conquered civilizations, staring at a holographic display showing Earth's entry into the galactic database. The classification had been updated from primitive carbon-based lifeforms to species of strategic interest to, finally, handle with extreme caution. "My lord," his aide ventured carefully, "the Tauri Science Council has requested an audience. They wish to discuss cultural exchange programs." Thraxon's laugh was hollow. "Cultural exchange. They want to understand how the humans did it, how they convinced perfect killing machines to like them." "Don't you see?" Thraxon turned to face his aide, his expression carrying the haunted look of someone who'd stared into the abyss and discovered it was purring. "We've been thinking about this all wrong. Every species in the galaxy has achieved dominance through force, through superior technology, through evolutionary advantages. But the humans achieved dominance through friendship." He gestured at his collection of trophies. "All of this, everything I've built, it's based on fear, on proving that I'm the most dangerous thing in the room. But those creatures, those cats, they're not afraid of anything because they know something I'm just beginning to understand." "What's that, sir?" "They know they don't need to prove anything. They're so confident in their abilities that they can afford to be nice. They can choose to protect instead of destroy. They can sit in a child's lap and purr while the galaxy's most feared predator makes a fool of himself trying to be intimidating." The aide shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, are you saying that humans are more dangerous than we thought?" Thraxon was quiet for a long moment, staring at the holographic image of Emma Rodriguez and Mr. Whiskers that had become the most analyzed piece of footage in galactic history. "No," he said finally. "I'm saying they're more dangerous than we could have imagined, precisely because they don't want to be dangerous at all. They've mastered the art of making allies out of apex predators. They've convinced creatures that could destroy them to instead protect them, and they did it all through kindness, patience, and the occasional treat." He stood up from his throne, his massive frame somehow seeming smaller than before. "Cancel all military operations for the next month. I need to research something called belly rubs and understand why it's apparently more effective than plasma cannons." Back on Earth, Emma Rodriguez was having a perfectly normal afternoon. She'd told her parents about the cool space trip and the funny dragon man who was really loud. But mostly she was focused on the important business of helping Mr. Whiskers catch the red dot from her laser pointer. As she watched her cat leap and pounce with the fluid grace of millions of years of predatory evolution, she had no idea that 3,000 civilizations were currently redesigning their first contact protocols based on his behavior. Mr. Whiskers, for his part, was perfectly aware that he'd just established cats as the most respected species in the galaxy. But since this was exactly how things should be, he simply caught the red dot one final time, meowed once to indicate that playtime was over, and settled down for his afternoon nap. After all, conquering the galaxy was exhausting work. But someone had to do it.